This year's Dvar Torah will focus on pursuing justice for all peoples in Israel and Palestine. While our community holds a diversity of viewpoints on this issue, several years ago, we went through an intentional process to identify shared principles for taking action. Our Israel-Palestine principles make room for a range of perspectives while centering a vision of dignity, equality, justice, and human rights for all Israelis and Palestinians. We organize for justice in Palestine and Israel because we see it as part of working towards multicultural, multiracial democracy here in the United States and across the world. You can read more about our principles on our website and can connect to this work by joining our Israel-Palestine Committee. We look forward to hearing personal reflections from Helen Raizen, co-chair of BWC's Israel-Palestine Committee. Helen has been involved in civil rights and anti-war movements since she was a teenager. In addition to her long career as an engineer, innovator, and patent creator, Helen has pursued her lifelong passion for Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. For the past 6 years, she has pursued prison abolition as a member of Surge Boston and Palestinian liberation through the Israel-Palestine work at BWC. Thank you, Helen, for your leadership.
Nobody told me I had to follow Congressman Presley. There are specific images that resonate. The dead girl in the pink roller skates, the smashed solar cells of a Palestinian farmer, the murdered Israeli peace activist Vivian Silver's son speaking of continuing her dedication to a path to peace, the white cloth kite that Rafat Al-Arir calls on us to construct and fly if he must die. The numbers are overwhelming, and each day brings new reports of deaths, injuries, and devastation in Gaza, the West Bank, and now Lebanon. Adding to the horror in Palestine-Israel is a palpable threat that a fascist authoritarian could be elected president, the existential threat of climate change, and the many other crises in the world, including Ukraine, Sudan, and Yemen, to mention just 3. It's hard at this point to keep taking it in. 2 of my relatives of 2 different generations had the same passage from Deuteronomy as their Torah portion. See, I have set before you this day life and good, death and evil. If you obey the commandments, then you shall live and multiply. But if your heart turns away and you will not hear, but are drawn away, you shall perish. I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore, choose life, that you and your descendants may live. What does it mean to choose life? Upholding the humanity of all peoples, speaking truth to power, practicing the discipline of hope, savoring life's wonders. Last October, as I witnessed the increasing dehumanization of Gazans, I saw parallels to my mother's Viennese grandparents, each of whom died during the Holocaust. Early in Hitler's reign in Austria, the Nazis allowed each of her grandfathers to be buried, and I have left pebbles on their graves. Her grandmothers, however, killed later, were not even worthy of burial. Sharing this family history, I gave a speech on October 27th, which is posted on the blog at BWC's website. In part, I said, "One thing that I know in the depth of my bones is that the dehumanization of my 4 great-grandparents and the other 6 million Jews killed in the Holocaust should not be compounded by the dehumanization of 2.3 million Palestinians, all of whom are being deprived of food, water, electricity, and medicine today in Gaza, a deprivation eerily similar to what my elderly ancestors experienced in Vienna more than 80 years ago. To choose life we must uphold the humanity of all peoples, especially as Jews. Upholding the humanity of our Palestinian cousins is the only way to assure our own safety. In addition to upholding the humanity of each person, to choose life means to speak truth to power. In July, I went to New York to apply for my Austrian passport, reclaiming a citizenship that my 13-year-old mother lost when forced to leave Austria. While in New York, I came across a quote from Martin Luther King from 1963. King writes of racist narratives taken for fact and the inability of many to discern the true from the false. The quote ends with these words: "One of the great needs of mankind is to be lifted above the morass of false propaganda." Speaking the same year, James Baldwin identifies the duty to excavate the real history of this country, to tell us what really happened to get us where we are now. We must tell the truth till we can no longer bear it. King and Baldwin were speaking from their awareness of white supremacy, the lost cause myth, and the racist systems upon which the U.S. was founded and built. But their words are hauntingly applicable today. After the 1982 Israeli invasion of Lebanon, June Jordan, in her essay, Life After Lebanon, recognized similarities between the oppression of black peoples and of Palestinians. Quote, "Israel looked a whole lot like yet another country run by white men whose militarism tended to produce racist consequences, that is, the disenfranchisement and subjugation of non-white peoples not nearly as strong as they." In two BWC study groups, one focused on anti-racism and one on Israel-Palestine, along with some of you, I have continued a lifelong process of uncovering the truth. We've learned how Israel consistently works to undermine Palestinian self-rule, using techniques from assassination to disrupting attempts to unify disparate Palestinian groups. Nonviolent protests by Palestinians are violently crushed by Israel, as happened with the Great March of Return in Gaza. In fact, what we are witnessing today is a continuation of what started before Israel was founded, an ongoing campaign of ethnic separation and ethnic cleansing. We recently read Mother of Strangers, a fact-based novel situated in Jaffa in 1947 to 51. It recounts how a Jewish terrorist force, the Irgun, destroyed a whole neighborhood of Jaffa in April of 1948, using mortar shells stolen from a British train. What wasn't blown up was declared abandoned, and Jewish settlers took over the homes of Palestinians who had fled the bombs. This was an attack on a city that was part of the Palestinian side of the UN-enacted partition, and these attacks contributed to the wider plan to take more territory for Israel before it was even officially founded. While it may be hard to face, these are but a few of the truths about the oppression of Palestinians. As an Israeli American said to me recently, there is a racist privilege of not knowing. As we continue to speak truth to power, we work to be among those who know. Hope is another aspect of choosing life. Noted prison abolitionist Miriam Kaba observed that hope is a discipline. Kaba uses this phrase to counter the feeling of being overwhelmed. She reminds us that it takes work to remain hopeful, and we must make it a daily practice to keep going. I recognize that for Black people in this country and for Palestinians in Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel, there is no alternative to hope. When oppressed, you have to believe that there's a better place, and there will be a better time when your struggle will prevail. But for those of us who are supporters of the struggle against oppression, we also cannot afford to give up hope. Out of hope, we continue to act, to protest, to write letters, to engage in mutual aid, to build movements. And we have a responsibility, just as Kaba says, to continue to practice the discipline of hope, especially in the face of the horrors we are witnessing. During the past few months, I often thought about what to say today. As I was kayaking around Center Pond in Maine, I savored many sights. The pitcher plant, revealed through its star-shaped blossom, the tiny pink orchids, the 2-foot-long snapping turtle that suddenly appeared beside my kayak, the wild blueberries, the pair of loons with their 2 babies. These small treasures fill me with wonder. Witnessing the wonders in our world is another part of choosing life, along with grander occasions, such as a family wedding or the birth of a grandchild, for me, coming in March. These joyous events embody our hope for a better world in the future. Choose life and its blessings. Uphold the humanity of every single person. Tell the truth till we can no longer bear it. Practice the discipline of hope. Savor life's wonders. In June Jordan's essay, Some of Us Did Not Die, she writes about hearing a Holocaust survivor say, quote, "I guess it was my destiny to live," unquote. This reminds me of years ago when I was 21 and was hit by a car while riding a bicycle. Visiting me in the hospital, my mother, a Holocaust refugee, said to me, "When you survive something like this, you have to think about why." I want to answer her question by quoting from Jordan's essay. In the aftermath of 9/11, Jordan wrote about her vision of an inclusive, secular democracy for the U.S., a vision I share and imagine might also be applied to Israel-Palestine. The humane, secular potential of democracy rests upon the conviction that just because you exist, you, male, female, Jew, Gentile, Muslim, poor, rich, smart, beautiful, lazy, scientific, artistic, gay, straight, bisexual, Republican, you are equal under the law, and it is the law which reigns as the supreme organizing governance of our experiment. That is the humane, secular basis for a democratic state. I hope we will bestir ourselves to rally around an emergency, militant reconstruction of a secular democracy consecrated to the equality of each and every living one of us. Some of us did not die. We're still here. I guess it was our destiny to live. So let's get on with it. Or, in the words of Deuteronomy, choose life that you and your descendants may live.